is my kombucha. It's been sitting around for about 2.5 weeks now. And you can see up here on the top, that's that scoby. This one's really big. I probably didn't need to use as big a piece as I used. Every time you make this stuff, it creates a new scoby. And you can just pull that out of there and cut it into 2 pieces or 4 pieces. And you mix it with the tea you make. And tomorrow I'm going to be bottling this. I got to get some more jars, so I'll finish this up tomorrow. I'm starting my kombucha, and right now I'm boiling 1 gallon of water, and then I'm going to add 10 to 12 tea bags of black tea when my water is all boiling. I'll let it steep for like 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes. Then I'll remove the bags, and I'll mix in 1 cup of granulated sugar. You want to use granulated sugar because it produces the most consistent kombucha. So I'm gonna, in a little while, I'll add the bags once this water is boiling. My water is hot. Now I'm going to add my 12 tea bags, or 1 ounce of bagged tea that you bagged yourself. Then I'm going to set my timer for 4 minutes. And then I will remove the bags and add the sugar. I removed all the tea bags, and I'm adding my sugar. You might think that 1 cup of sugar for 1 gallon of water seems like a lot of sugar, but really it's not. The culture that you're using, or the scoby, to make your kombucha, it lives off the sugar, and that's what keeps the scoby alive, so it turns your tea into a fermented drink. And the longer you let it sit, generally you want to start testing, taking a drink of your kombucha about 7 days, see how you like it. Or you can wait up until 30 days. The longer you let it set, the more sugar will be eaten by the culture, the scoby. So now it is critical to let your tea completely cool to room temperature. You don't want to add your culture to the hot tea. It'll kill the culture, which won't do any good. So now I'm going to let this cool completely. I just poured my hot tea into the containers that I'm going to be using to brew my kombucha in. And you want to leave enough room because you're going to want to use 1 cup of your previous batch of kombucha for each gallon of kombucha you make. And you're going to want to add a piece of the scoby, to each container. I'm using 2 containers to make a gallon. You can use a gallon jar or a gallon pitcher or like a crock. You don't really want to use a metal container to store your kombucha in, but just for stirring stuff, you don't have to worry about metal. But they do recommend you don't use a wooden spoon when you're stirring your kombucha tea when you're brewing it, stirring to melt the sugar in the tea bags. Okay, now I'm going to let it completely cool. kombucha to my cold tea. It has been, let it sit around long enough to cool off. And I have to this is my scoby. I'm going to give each one of these half of it. And I have some cheesecloth. You just cover the top of these with a piece of cheesecloth or a piece of an old t-shirt that you wash and it's clean. You cut it up. The stuff just needs something to keep the bugs and dirt out, and it needs to be able to breathe. And then I'm just going to set these jars somewhere, like on top of something, like something that produces heat, you know. You want to keep these somewhere around 80, 85 degrees for the next 7 to 30 days. You will try it, take a drink off it at 7 days, and see what you think. You'll probably still be pretty sweet, and then you just taste it every couple days until you got the right flavor. The longer you let it sit, the stronger the flavor gets. Kind of reminds me of a cider, is what I think this kind of reminds me of. Okay, well, that's how you make kombucha. I'm just going to filter my kombucha through I have a wire little strainer and a funnel. I'm just going to filter it through that as I bottle it. They tell you to use Grolsch type bottles, you know, with got the rubber stopper, kind of the wire. I can't find any of my Grolsch type bottles. And as you can see, I still got a really big hunk of scoby left, so you should ought to share it with your friends, because you'll never run out unless you let it die somehow. Alright, well, I wound up with 2 liters of kombucha out of the gallon I started with. And when you bottle it, you know, give it a nice top, tighten the lids up good, let it set out at room temperature for another 24 to 48 hours. That'll help with the carbonation. And once you refrigerate these, then the fermentation process stops. So if you let them set out a couple days, it helps build up the carbonation. I still think it's kind of cider-like.